Namaste and welcome everyone to the inaugural session of DSVV's Global E-Conclave on the sacred occasion of the International Day of Yoga. We're extremely honored to be hosting all of you today, and we have an incredible panel of esteemed saints, gurus, scholars, leaders, and scientists who will be joining us throughout the course of our next 3 days. As we all know, we are navigating through unprecedented times amidst the global COVID-19 pandemic. While times like these can certainly bring moments of fear and despair, they can also help to re-emphasize the heightened need for unity and solidarity for all of humanity. Our event today reminds us of that glorious day when the world came together at the United Nations organization with a single voice to celebrate the 21st of June as the International Day of Yoga. When we reflect on the true meaning of yoga over the next 3 days, from June 19th to June 21st, we see the practice of it is a holistic way to live life with perfect harmony between self and the external world. One such important relationship is that between humanity and nature. And therefore our theme today becomes all the more relevant, which is embracing unity and solidarity in COVID-19. Over the course of the next 3 days, we will be connecting with people from across the globe, from various nationalities, professions, and cultures. We hope this celebration is a way for us to enrich our understanding and to grow together as a result of the discussions led by our tremendous panel, which will encapsulate diverse perspectives and experiences. And without further ado, it's now our immense honor and pleasure to introduce you to our speakers and mentors, who themselves are a true testimony of unity, integrity, and humanity. Today, as we are marking the inauguration of Session 1, we would begin with an introductory address by a globally renowned personality who was the pivotal force that helped to establish yoga as an intangible heritage at UNESCO. He is an admired role model for thousands of young leaders of the all-world Gayatri Pariwar, which is a respected socio-spiritual organization with millions of followers worldwide. It is spread across 70 countries with more than 5,000 centers worldwide. He has worked with numerous spiritual fraternities, governmental organizations, and prestigious universities. His life represents a perfect synthesis of yoga, as he handles the multifaceted roles of mentor, advisor, professor, board member. However, most importantly, he harmoniously handles the role of volunteer, friend, and family member. Dr. Chinmay Pandya is the current Pro-Vice Chancellor of Sanskriti Vishwavidyalaya. He is the Director of DSVV's School of Yoga and Health and the Chairperson of the International Festival of Yoga, Culture, and Spirituality. He's the Director of Asia's first ever Center for Baltic Culture and Studies. He has represented India in the Intergovernmental Meeting of UNESCO on the topic of intangible cultural heritage. He is the World Health Organization's invited yoga expert. He has convened more than 70 national and international colloquia at DSVV and is responsible for ethos, academic rigor, and policy implementation within the university. He serves on the governing body of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR. He's a member of the Advisory Council for the Indian Ministry of Ayurveda, Yoga, Naturopathy, Unani, Siddha, and Homeopathy, or more commonly known as Ayush. He serves as a board of trustees for the India Development Foundation. He's one of the esteemed judges of the globally prestigious Templeton Prize Committee, and is one of 5 institutional leaders from around the world. And so with these words, we now invite respected Dr. Chinmay Pandya ji to give his introductory address. for our inaugural session today.
Dear brothers and sisters and dear friends, on this sacred occasion of the International Yoga Day, we are conveying our heartfelt wishes to all the members of your family, your loved ones, yourself, because this International Day of Yoga came at a very interesting, uncertain and precarious times. We have got a challenging environment all surrounding us, and if we look for the solution is right here in our consciousness, and the transformation of the consciousness, or rather transmutation of the consciousness, is what the yoga teaches us. And in the current times, the actual definition of the yoga, as Lord Shri Krishna, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says in the Gita, becomes more important than ever. In the second chapter, 48th and 50th verse, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says that Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmad yoga yujusva yoga karmasu kaushalam. That yoga is the excellence of all actions. If the real yoga comes to our life, then every single dimension of our life, physical, social, emotional, spiritual, all dimensions, all facets of our personality reaches to its pinnacle, reaches to its summit. And that is the real meaning of the yoga. And then he goes further, he says, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tvaktva dhananjaya siddha siddhyo samobhutva samatvam yoguchyate. He says yoga is nothing but the balance within, equipoise within, and harmony outside. And what could be the most important message than that in the current uncertain times, when we are going through a period where the human existence is going through a question of upheaval in existence. So this year, the International Day of Yoga, we are celebrating it with a very specific and special message, which is of unity and solidarity. This concept was given by Param Puja Gurudev, Pandit Shri Ram Sharma Acharya, long time ago. He said that if humanity has to find its future together, then they have to create the foundation of Ekata, Samata, Shuchita, Mamata, which is unity, solidarity, sacredness and compassion. He says these four pillars are needed to create a sustainable foundation for humanity to survive in years to come. And this message is equally important for the future of humanity as much as it is important for the day of yoga, because yoga essentially teaches these two things to us too. It teaches us the message of unity, for all of us to come together, a unification of individual to higher consciousness, and it also teaches us the samatva, the samatvam yoguchyate, the balance and harmony within ourselves. And this year we are celebrating this International Day of Yoga with this important and significant message. And we are conveying our heartfelt thanks to many of those speakers who have sent their messages of encouragement, support, many religious leaders, many spiritual leaders, many of those people whose life, whose personality, whose deeds, whose statements serve as great inspiration for the entire humanity and entire society. They have conveyed their messages of support to Gayatri Pariwar, and they have conveyed their messages of promise that how much inspired they feel by seeing the works and vision of the Gayatri Parijan. So, on behalf of entire Gayatri Parivar, on behalf of millions and members of the Gayatri Parivar, we reciprocate the same feelings to them. We convey our gratitude, we convey our thanks, we convey our kritagnata to all those great leaders who have conveyed their messages of blessing, support, affection, admiration and constant working with us, and we convey that we would be working together for this specific cause. Let this International Day of Yoga fulfill that vision that Gurudev saw long time ago. And he said that even if the humanity is going through a period of upheaval, we should not feel current time as dark and gloomy. Rather, we should embrace it like a call of action, because this is the first time that entire humanity has been called upon to accomplish a single goal, which is to bring humanity forward. And we should take inspiration from those words that Gurudev wrote 30 years ago, and we hope that we would be able to find a sustainable, meaningful and permanent solution to the problems of humanity in future through the works and vision of yoga. Pranams to all, and my respectful pranams to all the great leaders who had sent their messages to us. Pranam.
Thank you, Dr. Chinmay Pandya ji, for your insightful perspective and helping to set the theme and context for the next 3 days. We hope this introductory address will help to inspire our individual and collective efforts towards global solidarity and progress. Dear participants, with that we now transition from India to the United Kingdom to hear our next esteemed speaker, the Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland. It is such a privilege and honour to have her with us today, as she has earned many influential positions where she has worked to advocate for criminal justice and social reform. She is an inspiration for many, as she has overcome barriers throughout her career. In her current role as Secretary General of the Commonwealth, she brings together a vast array of experience in dealing with unity amidst nations and nationalities. Therefore, it's extremely fitting that we have her here with us today to share her wisdom and insights on the topic at hand. And so we would now like to present the Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland, who is the 6th Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations and is the first woman to ever hold this highly distinguished position. She is the first Black woman to be appointed as the Deputy High Court Judge, Recorder and Master of Middle Temple. She was elected at the House of Lords in 1997 as Baroness Scotland of Aspel. She has served as Minister in the Foreign Office, Home Office, and Lord Chancellor's Department of the UK, and is patron of the Corporate Alliance Against Domestic Violence, and is the patron of the Caribbean Science Foundation. And so, without further ado, we now welcome the Right Honourable Baroness Patricia Scotland to give her inaugural address.
We gasp and wonder at the ingenuity that broke the laws of gravity so we could fly as far as the moon, and marvel at the sheer resilience of humanity to rise from the abyss of world wars and global plagues. The question is, though, what will our children's children see when they read the story of the COVID-19 pandemic? There is no doubt that this is a story of unspeakable tragedy, of hundreds of thousands of loved ones dying without the comfort of being able to say goodbye, of economies being diminished and squeezed into recession, of a global pause on institution-based education, of an upending of our whole way of life. And for countries like India and Bangladesh, it is a story of what happens when, in the midst of a lethal pandemic, nature serves up a havoc-wreaking cyclone like Amphan. Today, India is facing an estimated $13 billion worth of cyclone damage. At least 13 million people have been affected, some losing homes, crops and lands, and the cyclone has sadly claimed more than 100 lives. And Asia is not the only Commonwealth region forced to face the deadly brew of disease, disaster and economic crisis. In Africa, the threat of drought, floods and locusts have been piled onto the government's already full plate of challenges. In the Pacific and the Caribbean, vulnerable, exposed small island states are bracing themselves for record-breaking cyclones and a monstrous Atlantic hurricane season with 33% more storms than average. Before COVID-19, many of these countries were already beset with numerous developmental challenges and encumbered by barely bearable debt levels, often the result of external shocks to their economies, such as natural disasters. So surely This is a moment in our history that will cause future generations to pause and scrutinize our actions and reactions. But I am hoping that my great-great-grandchildren will marvel at the sheer resilience of humanity to rise from this abyss. I'm hoping they will be inspired by the heroism and sacrifice of doctors, nurses, paramedics, orderlies, supermarket and transport staff, and all the other essential workers who braved the pandemic to keep the rest of us alive. And I'm hoping they will see the power of the Commonwealth spirit of altruism and collaboration. Indeed, coronavirus crept up on us in the midst of growing skepticism about the effectiveness of multilateral cooperation, reminding us that it's a small world after all, and eliminating any doubt about the need to collaborate across borders. And these multiple and overlapping challenges are now demanding that this spirit of interconnectedness must also inspire our problem-solving approaches. This is a lesson that the Commonwealth has had to learn very early on, mainly because of the vast diversity of challenges and opportunities represented in our membership. Actually, it is rooted in our shared values and principles and our mutual respect and understanding, which has both social and economic benefits, such as our trade advantage. We are guided by the firm belief that at the heart of our diversity, our cultures, our races, our religious beliefs, our genders, is the powerful connecting force of humanity that joins us together. And like the human body, when one member is damaged, every other part is affected. This was aptly articulated by former Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru, when he said in 1949, "We join the Commonwealth, obviously because we think it is beneficial to us and to certain causes in the world that we wish to advance. The other countries of the Commonwealth want us to remain because they think it is beneficial to them." The Commonwealth is a method, a desirable method, and a method that brings a touch of healing with it in this world which is today sick and which has not recovered from so many wounds inflicted in the last decade or more. It is necessary that we touch upon the world's problems, not with passion and prejudice, and with too much repetition of what has ceased to be, but in a friendly way, and with a touch of healing. These profound sentiments were later echoed by the head of the Commonwealth, Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II, in 1953, when she described her vision for the Commonwealth as an entirely new conception, built on the highest qualities of the spirit of man, friendship, loyalty, and the desire for freedom and peace. So we have long understood that nothing short of a robust, multinational, multi-sector, and multi-agency strategy can drive innovation and provide solutions to our complex and multi-dimensional challenges. But we also know that for these measures to be fully effective, we must be willing to come together and work with one mind toward a common goal, and also to protect and empower our greatest resource, our people, particularly vulnerable or marginalized groups. So we have been working with education departments to improve curricula, teaching methods, and technical and vocational options to ensure that everyone has access to quality education. This includes collaboration with universities and partners, such as the Commonwealth of Learning, on online learning resources, which is becoming ever more important as we face novel challenges such as coronavirus. We have prioritised programmes to harness the vibrancy and genius of the youth, who make up 60% of our population. Our empowerment initiatives include entrepreneurial programmes, recognition awards, and our Innovation Hub, a virtual platform for innovative ideas and projects. Nitesh Kumar Jangir, a young innovator and entrepreneur from India, and one of the winners of my Commonwealth Secretary General's Innovation for Sustainable Development Awards, has created a neonatal breathing support device. It maintains respiration and oxygenation in premature babies with respiratory distress syndrome. This is truly inspiring, and it is reflective of the principle of constant innovation and responsiveness to emerging challenges that govern all the Commonwealth's programmes and initiatives. This is why, coming into office, my focus was not just on addressing 21st century problems, it was also about preparing to navigate the waves and swells that the 22nd century might bring. Therefore, I firmly believe that we can dictate the outcome of our story. It may never be a happily ever after ending. The challenges will come. But as I often say, we can either swim together or drown separately. In other words, to defeat Goliath's challenges like coronavirus, disasters, and economic crises, to survive and once again flourish, we have to work together. I believe this pandemic can be a story of innovation and discovery as we find new ways to communicate, teach, trade, and travel. In my own life and in the tenure as Secretary General, I have often been inspired and sustained by the wisdom of the great Mahatma Gandhi, that strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from an indomitable will. And I want to take the opportunity to congratulate our 54 governments and their population for their amazing strength and resilience and for their success in these incredibly difficult circumstances. I want to assure you that our experts are working closely with our partners and stakeholders in all sectors to support the around-the-clock efforts of all our governments to implement strong, effective response strategies. I am confident that this will be our story of triumph over adversity, but only if we continue in a spirit of collaboration and make the right choices. History does not just happen. It is made up of a sequence of deliberate actions and decisions. So I hope that this pandemic will lead us to make good choices and avoid past pitfalls, so that coming generations can look back and say, thank you for giving us a future.
Thank you so much, Miss Patricia Scotland, for your valuable message and words of wisdom for all of our participants. Your passion for change understanding, and deep-rooted experiences is indeed very valuable for all of us, because it's with these insights that we can endeavor to come together as a single global family. We are very privileged to have her presence today, as her message has helped to further solidify the theme of this E-Conclave. In continuing with the agenda for our inaugural session, we now move on to the next esteemed guest speaker. When we speak of unity and solidarity, we can glean that these virtues have to be forged between diverse sectors of the community. And our next speaker represents one such pivotal sector of the society, which is that of the corporate enterprise. His incredible work in the field of corporate excellence, social responsibility, and philanthropy demonstrate the ability of the private sector to create meaningful change within the society. His visionary business acumen, coupled with a deep desire for social impact, contribute towards a dynamic personality for all of us to learn from. And so we would now like to invite the Honorable Mr. Mohammed Amersi ji, who is the founder and chairman of Inclusive Ventures and CEO of Emergent Telecom Ventures. Honorable Mr. Mohammed Amersi is an honorary fellow of Resp College, Oxford, and an independent governor of the Royal Agricultural University, Cirencester. The Amersi Foundation, which was founded by him in 2012, is one of the several philanthropic initiatives which works for causes such as education, poverty, and religion in Africa and Asia. The Extremely Together project, coordinated by the Amersi Foundation and Kofi Annan Foundation, has empowered 10 young leaders to mobilize a movement against violent extremism in their respective communities. He is a trustee and member of the Global Advisory Board of Prince's Trust International. He's a trustee of the Kailash Satyarthi Children's Foundation, the Rose Castle Foundation, which works with faith leaders to improve interfaith communications. He's a member of the Global Leadership Council of the Syed Business School at University of Oxford, member of the advisory boards of the Global Thinkers Forum, Toucan, and Faith in Leadership, member of the Global Partners Council of the Institute of New Economic Thinking, or INET, and member of the advisory board of the Commonwealth Enterprise and Investment Council of the Commonwealth First, and member of the advisory board of the Education Outcomes Fund. And so with this, I'm sure we're all waiting to hear from him. And so without further ado, we now present to you Mr. Mohammed Amersi ji.
Adarniya Dr. Chinmay Bhai and all members of the Gayatri Pariwar, Namaste. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be invited to share my perspectives and reflections on humanity and its future seen from the lens of the present. Until recently, we had a profoundly different sense of ourselves, our communities, our systems of production, and our future. For many of us in the developed world, what has changed most immediately is spatial. In only a short few weeks, our future has become very uncertain. We have stayed home for those of us that have a home and away from contact with others. We have withdrawn from schools, workplaces, conferences, vacations, gyms, errands, bars, clubs, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, from the hustle and the bustle of everyday life. Our hospitals are overwhelmed. Our loved ones are dying alone. Our funerals are empty experiences, and the global economy has suffered a severe setback. In this era, we have learned a whole new lexicon, such as triaging, social distancing, self-isolation. I have never ever seen a time like this. I have never experienced a phenomena where we are having to stay apart in order to come together. The philosopher mystic Simone Weil once wrote to a faraway friend, "Let us love this distance, which is thoroughly woven with friendship, since those who do not love each other are not separated." We have withdrawn from one another to protect each other. We have never so eagerly awaited a positive result for a disease. Such paradoxes. When I first experienced the impact of the coronavirus from my home city of London, I wasn't sure what to make of it. On the one hand, during some days it felt, and it still feels, like we are at war with an erstwhile enemy that is suddenly everywhere and nowhere, to be felt but not to be seen. A war without missiles and grenades, a war without human soldiers, a war without borders. The army in this war is without mercy. It is without any compassion. It is indiscriminate. It has no respect for children, women, or places of worship. This army is not interested in spoils of war. It is not even interested in religious, ethnic, or ideology. Its only ambition has nothing to do with racial superiority. It is an invisible, fleet-footed, and ruthlessly effective army. Its only agenda is a harvest of death. It is only satiated after turning the world into one big death field. Its capacity to achieve its aim is never in doubt. Without any movement of hardware and assets, it has a base in almost every country of the world. Its movement is not governed by any war convention or protocol. In short, this army is a law unto itself. All our defenses and nuclear capabilities through which we threaten states and citizens are of no use against this enemy. This war machine is the coronavirus, otherwise known as COVID-19. On the other hand, during other days, it feels like that I am in a storm at sea, which I'm hoping will pass quickly, but it is turning out to be a long storm with very rough seas. In the storm I'm on a boat, but I see many other boats, some bigger than mine, but many the size of a canoe, which are sure to capsize if not rescued. The vista of this vast sea that I see from my window is a beautiful but a deeply thought-provoking kaleidoscope, where for some quarantine is optimal, a moment of reflection, of reconnection, easy in flip-flops with continuous refreshment. For others, it is a desperate crisis. For some, it is facing loneliness, and for others, it's peace, rest time, vacation. For some, it is torture. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to feed my family? Yet others have been concerned about a special brand of chocolate for Easter. Some are in their home office. Others are looking through trash in order to survive. Some have experienced the near death of the virus. Some have already lost someone from it. Some are not sure whether their loved ones are going to make it. And others don't even believe this is so big a deal. Some who are well in health and confident of their immunity may end up experiencing it, and others who believe that they are infallible are sure to be blown away if or when this hits them or someone they know. So friends, I'm realizing that while we may be in the same storm, we are definitely not on the same boat. We are going through a time when our perceptions and needs are completely different, and each one of us will eventually emerge in his own way from this storm. Some with a tan from their pool, others with scars on their soul. It's very important to see and listen beyond what is seen and heard at first glance, not just looking and hearing, but much more than that. It is proper seeing and proper listening. I'm learning in this experience not to underestimate the pain of others if I do not feel it. I'm learning not to judge the good life of the one, nor condemn the bad life of the other. I'm learning not to be a judge of the one who lacks, as well as the one who exceeds him. I'm seeing how people leave supermarket shelves empty, buying food, masks, and disinfectants compulsively. I'm seeing acts of racism and discrimination against certain collectives, fearing that they may be infected with the virus. I'm listening to politicians fighting and blaming each other, trying to take advantage of this situation instead of fighting for the common good. I'm experiencing how fear has taken hold of people, bringing out their most selfish side. I'm observing with my own senses how, in order to fight a monster, some have become monsters. But I also see people who are offering to buy food for the most vulnerable groups. I see people supporting each other through their windows, singing and sharing words of encouragement. Doctors and nurses who have given up their off days and holidays and who take extra turns without barely resting. Assistants working really hard to take care of elders without any type of recognition. Hotels donating beds to hospitals and opening their doors for the treatment of patients, and youth helping those in need in their neighborhoods. From my permitted routine walks, I am breathing clean air and seeing clear skies, such that the evening star shines extraordinarily bright in the western sky. The near absence of traffic has also revealed sounds that were hitherto drowned out for years by the roar of cars and buses. I hear blackbirds singing on Park Lane, the rustling of leaves in Hyde Park, and along the banks of the Serpentine, wild ducks, and in its waters a swan. From our garden I see a vixen raising a family in tranquility. Such sheer bliss. Looking at these vistas, it is the beauty of nature and humanity, and all the good that I see being done, that is imprinted as an everlasting image on my mind. Seeing all this has given me hope, because above all the fear and uncertainty, there is solidarity and kindness in people's hearts. I have no doubt that we will emerge from this crisis. I just hope when all this is over, these beautiful feelings that are growing in people's hearts, these feelings of togetherness that define the most beautiful features of humanity, stay here to never go, because there is still so much to do, and more than ever we must stand united and be together. The power to see and to listen authentically must continue. While cities may slowly come back to life again, there is no going back to normal, and many agree that nothing will ever be the same again. It is not clear, though, what kind of global political order will emerge in the post-corona world. This ordeal has the potential either to bring us closer to one another or turn us into further strangers in an increasingly estranged world. The choices we make will shape not just the geopolitical system and the economy, but also the state of our humanity in decades to come. I have my own views on how global institutional order must change, but I will express them in another format at another time. Suffice to say that the change is paramount and urgently needed. We will need to look at it with a much larger us frame than hitherto. The key will be to provide human security for us all. Global threats like COVID-19 show that none of us is safe until all of us are safe. There are no longer cultural hierarchies, economic immunities, or economic privileges for any region, nation, or country. No country can fight this on its own. Multilateral action and solidarity may sound like a cliché, but it is more urgent than ever to save lives. Whether in Wuhan, New York, London, or inside the refugee camps, protecting the most vulnerable must be the priority. We must remember and cherish our deeper humanity when we care for the elderly, the sick, the needy, and the foreigner. We, after all, are the keepers of our brothers and sisters, and their pain and their suffering is also our own pain and suffering. But this deeper humanity must spread to every street, every neighborhood, every city, and every country if we are to defeat the virus, and this war needs to be fought by all means necessary: scientific, economic, social, security, religious, and kindness. And in fighting this war, we should not lose sight of the fact that this is not about being rich or poor, developed or developing, but about being wise, compassionate, and human. Building higher walls may give the populists and the protectionists a few scores, but cannot ensure safety and security for all. The corona days will pass, but political and religious leaders must lead the way to be vigilant against the viruses of xenophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other types of racism spreading in our midst. Every natural disaster is nature's attempt to create a new balance. It is a response to what we humans are doing to the harmony of the natural order. This requires an urgent and appropriate response from humankind. This response cannot be just in terms of numbers, statistics, and charts, i.e., just more of what we have been doing for several centuries. This is not going to last and is not sustainable. A deeper understanding is required, which entails a radical reckoning and transformation of the ways in which we interact in the world, with the world, and a deep and urgent review of our connectedness. COVID-19 is a warning that we are not the masters of the universe and the world is not our property. If capitalism and consumerism continue their carnage on the world will give us more viruses, pandemics, and disasters. In conclusion, I want to narrate a beautiful true story of the people of your wonderful country that I was privileged to hear about and watch on video. In the city of Delhi, your capital, lived an octogenarian by the name of Saligram, whose heart sank as he saw the others from his village preparing to walk to it after the nationwide lockdown was announced. Saligram was a resident of Uttar Pradesh's Shravasti district, some 200 kilometers from Delhi. He had had an attack of paralysis a few years back and was therefore paralyzed and unable to walk. He thought that he would be left behind to die. After all, who would want to carry along an old man at a time when there were no buses or trains and everyone might have to walk 200 kilometers or so to reach their village homes? He was wrong. Some enthusiastic youths from his village, of all castes and faiths, prepared a makeshift palanquin with the help of bamboo and bedsheet. Saligram was made to lie on the bedsheet and it was tied with a bamboo pole on both ends. The group that left with Saligram comprised 65 people, including women and children. They were dropped by a truck driver at a place from where the Yamuna Express starts, and from there the group started walking, carrying Saligram in the makeshift palanquin. They took turns in doing so. The group reached Lucknow 5 days after they left Delhi. They were resting on the highway when a senior UP IPS officer by the name of Navneet Sekera, who happened to be passing by, spotted them and stopped. He arranged food for them and also a bus to take them to Shravasti. Members of the group were heard saying, "We could never have left Saligram behind in Delhi. He is from our village. We would not have been able to face others had we left him." All of them were daily wages, barely having enough to survive. The lesson from this is that humanity will prevail, the power of love will always prevail over the love of power, and staying human in the days of the coronavirus is a moral test for us all. Thank you and God bless. Mohammed Amersi.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mr. Mohammed Amersi ji. We all had the great pleasure of listening to him just now. It was a great opportunity for all of us to have learned from you and to witness the powerful linkages that exist between charity and commerce. To everyone tuning in, we are fortunate to be part of this knowledge exchange where leaders from around the globe are sharing their insights. As we move forward, I'm excited to announce Dr. Goergette F. Bennett, a woman who is an expert and scholar of interreligious dialogue and policy. Her life and work has been dedicated to international conflict resolutions and activism against religious-based violence. We are eager to hear her thoughts and receive her guidance. She is an award-winning sociologist, criminologist, and journalist, and is the founder and president of the Tanenbaum Center for Interreligious Understanding, which was founded in 1992. She founded the Multi-Faith Alliance in 2013 to mobilize support for alleviating and the suffering of Syria's war victims. She is honorably recognized as the Syrian American Medical Society for her work on behalf of Syrian refugees. She is a founding board member of Global Covenant Partners, GCP, and is a key participant in the Global Covenant of Religions. She served in the U.S. State Department's Religion and Foreign Policy Initiatives Working Group, which developed recommendations on countering religion-based violence. She serves on the board of Third Way Institute and the Jewish Funders Network, where she is currently the Vice Chancellor. She serves on the advisory board of the Foundation for Relief and Reconciliation in the Middle East. And in 2015, Dr. Bennett received the Activist Award from Project Kesher and the Lives of Commitment Award from Auburn Theological Seminary. And so with that, we now welcome Dr. Bennett to shed light on the topic at hand.
Greetings from New York. I'm deeply honored that Dr. Chinmay Pandya invited me to speak to members of the all-world Gayatri Pariwar movement, with its 100 million members and 5,000 centers in more than 80 countries. The principles of human unity and equality that guide your movement are urgently needed as we confront the physical, economic, and spiritual fallout of the global COVID-19 pandemic. I want to also express my respect for the Dev Sanskriti University, which wisely combines contemporary education with spiritual training, both of which are required for well-rounded human beings. We need those well-rounded human beings to provide balance at a time when so many malign forces threaten our world. But above all, I want to acknowledge Dr. Pandya, a great yogi, grandson of the founder of the Gayatri Pariwar fraternity, and one of the most humble and deeply spiritual people I know. As a psychiatrist, he specialized in working with older people. And because COVID-19 tends to be more severe and deadly in the elderly, that specialty could not be more timely. Chinmay and I first met in 2015 at a meeting of the world's interfaith leaders convened by Prince Ghazi in Jordan. Along with other colleagues, we co-founded Global Covenant Partners, the umbrella organization for Global Covenant of Religions. As such, we were committed to delegitimizing the use of religion as a justification for violence and extremism. And that too has relevance for this pandemic because it has spawned conspiracy theories which I fear will result in violence once the worldwide shutdowns lift. In my message today, this is one of the two themes I'd like to discuss, and the other is caring for the stranger and its spiritual dimension. I approach this question as a Jew. As such, I couldn't help noting the timing of the pandemic, just before the start of Passover. Passover is the annual holiday that marks the liberation of Hebrew slaves from Pharaoh's Egypt. In the Passover story, the deity who would become the monotheistic God of the Abrahamic religions speaks through Moses and commands Pharaoh to let my people go, but Pharaoh would not do it. Each time he refused to release the Hebrews, God let loose another plague on Egypt. It took 10 plagues before the Israelites were freed, plagues that inflicted terrible suffering on the Egyptian people. But Jews don't celebrate the plagues that brought the Israelites their freedom. Jews are forbidden to celebrate the suffering of others, even our enemies. Instead, Jews are commanded to retell the story every year, from generation to generation, to remind ourselves that we too were once strangers. Therefore, we must always care for the stranger. This year, COVID-19 swept through the world like an 11th plague. I wonder, will modern autocrats be defeated by this plague, just as Pharaoh was by the 10 plagues of ancient times? COVID-19 certainly seems to have stirred widespread distrust in government. How will we emerge from this plague? More divided, or more united? One thing that can unite us is the near universal duty to care for the stranger. That duty is fundamental to Jewish law, and so is the duty to heal the sick and to preserve life. We're directed to do that through prayer, visiting the sick, which of course we can't do with COVID-19 patients, and taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. These duties are grounded in Judaism's core belief that each person is made in the sacred image of God and is worthy of infinite respect and dignity. But the overarching precept of Judaism is tikkun olam, the obligation to repair the world. And the world needs a great deal of repair right now as we struggle with this terrifying pandemic. Many of us are in quarantine due to COVID-19. It's an anxious time as we compulsively disinfect everything anyone might have touched, and then wonder what we missed, because that's the thing that's going to get us. I guess you could call this pandemic paranoia. But if we're scared, imagine how scared are the 71 million displaced persons in the world. Most are unprotected by either governments or their living conditions. Take Syria as an example. 25% of the world's displaced population is Syrian, the largest displacement of any group. Fewer than 10% live in refugee camps where they can receive at least a modicum of medical services. The healthcare infrastructure in Syria has been destroyed by ongoing attacks on medical workers and facilities as a weapon of war. Clean water is a luxury. PPE is almost non-existent. And how can people be socially distanced when they're packed so densely into urban squats or overcrowded encampments. So let us not forget these strangers. In 2013, I founded the Multi-Faith Alliance for Syrian Refugees in order to care for the stranger. We're comprised of more than 100 faith-based and secular partner organizations, Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jews, Christians, Muslims, speaking in one voice across the spectrum of religions. We've delivered $150 million of aid directly into Syria and the surrounding areas. In the process of providing aid, we were able to build bridges between sworn enemies. Israelis and Syrians rose above politics, distrust, and hate to join forces in order to alleviate terrible suffering. And that partnership for a period of time helped stabilize an entire region of Syria. MFA has also advocated in world capitals for more aid and more compassion for these war victims. But we live in a time of nationalism in which countries have closed their borders and their hearts. Now, in a time of COVID-19, MFA is focusing on delivering aid in place: hygiene kits, soap, masks, protective equipment, medication. We've also been building tents with our partners on the ground so that the displaced can have some shelter. I hope AWGP will join the Multi-Faith Alliance. You're already doing such vital disaster relief work. Right now, there's no greater disaster than the vulnerability and needs of these war victims. Your enormous following around the world could do them a great deal of good. But there's another area in which your vast membership can do great good. That's encountering the voices of hate that have been amplified by the COVID crisis. Vicious and toxic conspiracy theories have spiked and spread through the internet. Jews, Muslims, Asian Americans, immigrants, and other minority groups are being harassed and outrageously linked to the spread of the disease. Here are just a few examples. An elaborate propaganda campaign claims that Israel is deliberately promoting COVID-19 in the occupied territories. Untrue. In fact, there is close cooperation between Israeli and Palestinian authorities in dealing with this outbreak. Another theory claims that Israel created COVID-19 in order to develop a vaccine, and if Israel succeeds in creating the first viable vaccine, well, that's to be taken as proof that it created the pandemic. Ridiculous. In an Oxford University survey, nearly 20% agreed that either Jews or Muslims were responsible for spreading the virus. Almost half endorsed to some degree the idea that COVID-19 is a bioweapon developed by China to destroy the West. 1/5 endorsed to some degree the idea that Jews have created the virus to collapse the economy for financial gain. And another nearly 20% agreed to some extent that Muslims are spreading the virus as an attack on Western values. In Europe, a lot of antagonism is directed at Asians because the pandemic started in China. Far-right groups in Britain are spreading fake news using backdated footage showing that mosques are still open during lockdowns and causing the spread of coronavirus. Not true. Almost 2,000 UK mosques are fully closed, and Ramadan has been observed in the virtual world. Nevertheless, one hears things like, Muslims are praying in groups, then driving taxis afterwards. Muslims are the enemy. Muslims off the streets. All over the world, these ignorant religious idiots are responsible for spreading this further. History tells us that pandemics with mysterious origins trigger waves of hate along with waves of disease. In the 14th century, for example, the Black Death was blamed on Jews, and pogroms were unleashed against them. Extremists are using this outbreak to push their political agenda, and co-opting coronavirus-related themes drawn from Russian and Chinese disinformation campaigns, the Trump administration's musings about the coronavirus's origins, and anti-Muslim themes from India's nationalist ruling party. These are all examples of verbal violence. Verbal violence dehumanizes the other. Once dehumanized, it's a short step from verbal violence to physical violence. We need to be prepared to counter the violence that's being fostered by the COVID-19 calamity. Hate is the opposite of what AWGP represents. AWGP has a vast network. In this era of social media, we must all mobilize our networks to counter hate speech and conspiracy theories. We must speak in one voice against those who exploit a calamity to divide us. We must use our convening power and communication networks to foster compassion and take concrete action to protect the stranger from both COVID-19 and the epidemic of hate that comes with it. Religious actors have a special responsibility to step up. Although the core precepts of each of the great religions are rooted in love, peace, and respect, it's also in religion that one finds the roots of hate speech. It's a form of group narcissism, the idea that one's own group holds a monopoly on truth. It's grounded in apocalyptic thinking that divides the world into the children of light and the children of darkness. But we're all children of light, who must be open to the light in others, especially the stranger. When religions unite, they can serve as the conscience of the world, and in that conscience, we must see to it that we treat each other according to the golden rule that all religions have in common. In Hinduism, it's expressed in the Mahabharata 5:15-17. This is the sum of duty. Do naught unto others, which would cause pain if done to you. Namaste. I bow to the divine within you. May we all bow to the divine in each other so that we can restore harmony in our world.
We're extremely grateful to Dr. Goergette Bennett for her words of wisdom, and there's so much for us to learn from her decades of experience with advocating for religious pluralism and bringing together people of different faiths. We are afforded this wonderful opportunity to hear from people who are leaders in their respective fields, and we must embrace the knowledge and learnings that we are being shared with today. Moving forward, may I now take the pleasure of introducing respected Canon Sarah Snyder. She is a profound voice internationally in the field of religious-based reconciliation and peacebuilding. Her expertise resides in serving as an effective mediator who can work within the community and with senior religious leaders. Additionally, she is a distinguished leader in the field of peace and reconciliation, a theologian who specializes in Jewish, Christian, Muslim relations, and bringing about wide-ranging international experience of peace building and dialogue. She is the Archbishop of Canterbury's Advisor for Reconciliation. She is the founding director of Rose Castle Foundation, an international center of reconciliation in England. She is the new chairperson of the Henry Martin Trust. She has directed partnerships with Religions for Peace International, which is an organization affiliated to the United Nations, and she directed the Cambridge International Summer Schools for faith leaders from conflict zones. And so with that, we now await respected Canon Sarah Snyder, who will be sharing her thoughts and messages on unity and solidarity.
Namaste. Namaste, greetings from the Lake District in Cumbria. We live in a really beautiful part of the world, and we wanted to share this with you in the midst of the lockdown and the struggle that so many of you are feeling, we too, in our communities here. We want to assure you of our prayers at Rose Castle Foundation, and we want to assure you that we are remembering you every single day. You can probably hear the birds. This is a World Heritage Site we live in here, and the land, of course, is flourishing despite the fact that the rest of the world is on pause. Possibly because of that fact, actually, it's flourishing. We have new lambs being born here every day. We've got new birds building their nests. We've got ducks here out on the stream, and many, many examples of abundant life. And as Christians, we feel that we have a God who is a creator of abundant life. Even in the midst of suffering, he stands at the heart of our suffering, but he longs for us to know an abundance of life and living life to the full. And so we pray that even in the heart of the struggles that you are facing, whether at home or whether away from loved ones, we pray that you will see something of the abundance of life in this season of the year, this spring season of the year. So we send you our warmest greetings, and we long to invite you to come and share some of this beauty with us, and we long to come and visit you one of these days. Greetings from Rose Castle Foundation.
Thank you so much, respected Ms. Sarah Snyder, for sharing your meaningful message with all of us today. Dear participants, we have explored the concepts of unity and solidarity through the lens of speakers that originate from fields such as public policy, corporate excellence, theology, and education. We now transition to another significant space within the community, which is to explore the theme in the context of the youth demographic. Young leaders are the future of our world, and the past has proved that to us on many occasions. When young, dynamic, and responsible leaders take on roles of leadership, there are drastic positive changes that are possible and that can emerge within the society. Our next guest speaker, Honorable Mr. Krish Raval, is engaged in numerous global initiatives to help groom and guide such types of youth with innate leadership potential. He is the founder and director of Faith in Leadership at Oxford University in the UK, which was established in 2007. He was awarded an Order of the British Empire by the Queen of England for his tireless dedication to building interfaith communities within the UK. He is managing a senior faith leaders program in participation with Cambridge University's Divinity School. He's the founder of Learn to Read, which is a leadership program for young people, and he's a member of Initiatives of Change USA. And so with that, we now invite him to present his thoughts on the topic and theme at hand. And I'm sure we're all eager to hear his opinions and perspectives.
Jai Gurudev. Whether we have taken darshan of Param Pujya Gurudev and Vandaniya Mataji directly, whether we have encountered them through their life message and teachings, or whether we engage with our beloved and revered Honorable Dr. Sahab Gigi and Dr. Chinmay Bhai, and our many other distinguished sisters and brothers and elders in Shantikunj and elsewhere, those of us who are privileged to be a part of Gayatri Pariwar have access, it seems to me, to the brightest, most brilliant light in the midst of the unspeakable misery wrought by the present COVID emergency. Today, I catch glimpses of this spirituality in every life saved, in the corrective self-awareness that comes from living in lockdown with one's family, and above all, in the kindness and heroism of frontline workers, the cleaners, purveyors of food and medicine, the doctors and nurses, research scientists, the police, and others delivering essential services, sometimes at great risk to themselves. Our communities, religious and NGOs in particular, are showing feats of immense charity and care. I'm so proud that millions of Gayatri Parijans And thousands of Gayatri Pariwar centers the world over, for instance, are donating to healthcare providers, offering meals to the hungry and dispossessed, and contributing to national welfare services to the benefit of countless peoples, regardless of their background. When combined with the outreach of churches, mosques, synagogues, and gurudwaras, these efforts are monumental. Yet, as powerful and vital as relief efforts are, they alone may not permanently transform the reality of our situation. We need the masses to wake up to a very basic cornerstone of Gayatri Pariwar, that humanity as a single family unit can be destroyed by the weakness of any one of its constituent parts, or it can become ever stronger, more resilient, and more potent if its members recognize their duty of care and indeed love for one another and the habitat we share with other species. That should become the new normal. The global trauma of coronavirus, too, needs to impel a new leadership, one that is spurred by the ongoing sacrifice and suffering of billions to ensure we live differently and in harmony with one another and the environment. To do this, we need a mobilization of humankind beyond the boundaries that have traditionally divided us. It is my prayer that some of you will be the leaders who ensure that the legacy of COVID is not more destructiveness, but the very realignment of the world order itself. And in this, I should like to leave you with the holy words of Param Pujya Gurudev himself. When there are floods and epidemics, nothing short of public cooperation works. Scriptures have referred to such mass movements of the past as Yug Parivartan, epochal transformation or incarnation of divinity. Great revivals of this magnitude are also called grand revolutions, Mahakranti. Revolutions emerge as a struggle against undesirable elements. In not too far a future, a new generation of visionary torchbearers, vibrant talents, and spirited volunteers devoted to the noble cause of global reconstruction is going to emerge from among us that will dwarf the achievements of the past.
Thank you so much, Mr. Krish Ravalji, for your enthusiastic words of wisdom. It was indeed a great pleasure to hear from you, and we're sure that your thoughts will inspire all those who aspire to become faith leaders within their communities. Moving along, our final speaker for this inaugural session of our E-Conclave is Honorable Shri Mahim Vermaji, who joins us with a rich background in the field of sports and management. We are quite confident that his views will add a unique and holistic layer of understanding to our theme that we have been discussing so far. May I now take the honor and pleasure of inviting Honorable Mahim Vermaji, who is the Vice President of the Board of Control for Cricket in India. He is the Secretary of Cricket Association of Uttarakhand, or CAU. He has bagged the cricket authorization from BCCI for Uttarakhand in 2019. He introduced Uttarakhand to the world of cricket and is now working to make Uttarakhand the rising land of cricketers. He introduced talent of Uttarakhand to the world of cricket and has mentored them to achieve their best. And so, please join us in welcoming our very own Shri Mahim Vermaji.
सभी श्रोताओं एवं दर्शकों को मेरा नमस्कार। आज के इस ग्लोबल ई-कॉन्क्लेव का हिस्सा बनकर मुझे बहुत प्रसन्नता हो रही है। इसके लिए मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहूँगा देव संस्कृत विद्यालय के कुलपति डॉक्टर चिन्मय पांडे जी का, जिन्होंने मुझे पत्र के माध्यम से इस कॉन्क्लेव का हिस्सा बनने के लिए कहा। जैसा कि आप लोग जानते हैं कि इस समय भारत ही नहीं पूरा विश्व जो है कोरोना महामारी से जूझ रहा है, स्ट्रगल कर रहा है। यूनिटी यानी एकता, सॉलिडरिटी यानी समता, ये शब्द ऐसे हैं जो मुझे ऊर्जा से भर देते हैं। और ये जो आपका विषय है आज के परिवेश से बिल्कुल फिट बैठता है। ऐसे में हमें मन, दिमाग, शरीर को मजबूत रखना होगा और ये सब हम योग के माध्यम से कर सकते हैं। और इस कोरोना महामारी ने इसमें हम कहें स्टेप जोड़ा है कि कोरोना महामारी से अब एक आम जन को कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर आना पड़ेगा। कोरोना से लड़ने के लिए आपको फिट रहना पड़ेगा, तो ही आप जीवन जी सकते हैं। इसके लिए आपको योग, व्यायाम, खेल कूद यानी अपने फिटनेस को पूरा ध्यान रखना होगा। तो कोरोना ने हमको इस कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर निकाला है, अपने आप को फिट रखने की एक चुनौती भी दे दी है। तो आज आप देखेंगे कि कोरोना की वजह से हर जगह जहाँ भी देखें आप, लोग बीमारी, स्ट्रेस, लॉकडाउन से भी स्ट्रेस में हैं लोग, कोरोना की वजह से लोग स्ट्रेस में हैं, टेंशन में हैं। इससे डर भी बैठा हुआ है और इस दौर से, बहुत बुरे दौर से वो गुजर रहे हैं। और इसके लिए हमें अपने आप को योग से फिट रखना है, अच्छा खान पान करना है, जिससे हमारा इम्यून सिस्टम बना रहे। मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूँ कि हम अपने आप को फिट रखें, अच्छा खान पान करें, तो जल्दी सब कुछ सही होगा, सब कुछ पहले जैसा ही हो जाएगा और जल्दी हम वैश्विक महामारी को हरा के फिर से मैदान में उतरेंगे। मैं आप सभी के मंगल स्वास्थ्य की प्रार्थना करता हूँ। एक बार फिर से आपका धन्यवाद और फिर से शुक्रिया करना चाहूँगा डॉक्टर चिन्मय पांडे जी का, जिन्होंने मुझे इस कॉन्क्लेव का हिस्सा बनने के लिए आमंत्रित किया। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Honorable Mahim Verma ji, for your valuable guidance and insights. And so with that, dear friends, viewers, and panelists, with this we will now be concluding the first session of our global E-Conclave in celebration of the International Day of Yoga. Keeping in mind our theme of embracing unity and solidarity, we hope that the discussions that were held today have been thought-provoking and have given us a renewed sense of understanding and enlightenment. We would like to express our great reverence to all the panelists that joined us today, and also our sincere gratitude to everyone that joined today as a listener and participant. And finally, we would also like to extend our invitation to all of you to join our upcoming session, which will be held at 8:30 p.m. IST. And so with that, thank you to everyone and our sincere pranams from DSVV.